Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We're just giving everyone a chance to file in. So once we have quorum, we will begin. Thank you for your patience. All right. Looks like we have quorum. So thank you, everyone, for being prompt and on time. Really appreciate that. I know we have a couple more people filing in over time, so we'll just go ahead and get started. Welcome to the October 7th, 2021 meeting of Community Board 11's Environment, Open Space and Parks Committee. My name is Jessica Elliott, and I'm the chair of the committee. This meeting is called to order at 6:33, a record. Tonight, we are joined by Assistant District Manager Carly Wine, the staff liaison to our committee. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. One, no one may speak until granted the floor. CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. If you click the participants icon, the participants panel should appear and you should find the raise hand function there. If you still have technical difficulty, you may click the chat icon and relay your difficulty to the staff. The chat function should not be used for CB11 business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. When a member is given the floor to speak, I will identify you and you can unmute yourself so that you can speak. Please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subjects on the agenda, please raise your hand through Zoom and wait to be recognized. We will now take attendance by roll call. Board members, you can unmute yourselves and answer present when your name is called.
Collier.
Present.
Elliott.
Present.
Giordano.
Present.
Hume. Johnson.
Here.
Lee.
Here, present.
Mastrota. Francis.
And
McCullough. Pena. Quinones.
present.
Rodriguez.
Present.
Schuler.
Present.
Wiltshire Clement.
Present.
Right. Okay, you have quorum.
Carly. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and was posted online. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda as stated. Committee members, if you object to adopting the agenda, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. The minutes from our last meeting were distributed to committee members ahead of time by the board office. If there is no objection, we will adopt the minutes from that meeting. Committee members, if you object to adopting the minutes, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no objections, the minutes from the last meeting are adopted. They will soon be available on the CB11 website. The minutes of tonight's meeting are being taken by myself. Just one quick announcement from myself, and if anyone else has an announcement, go ahead and raise your hand. But there is an upcoming workshop. We have yet to be distributed to the full board, but I'm working with ULI, Urban Land Institute, through the Urban Plan program to provide a Urban Plan for Public Officials workshop on November 12th. It will be an all-day experience. So if you are available and would like to take part in that, it's Urban Plan for Public Officials, but we're targeting it specifically to community board members and staff. So this is like a real world scenario. You get paired with a team and everyone plays a different role. And it's about the realities of development, and you have letters from the community, which I'm sure we're all aware of how the community plays a role in these, and then the requirements from the cities, the developers, and you have a site plan that you work together on to create a vision for the future of the neighborhood. So it's a really great program. It's completely free, and I will be there facilitating it. So if you are interested, please let me know. And I'll just drop my email in the chat just in case, but we should be getting an email from the New York City Civic Engagement Agency, and then distributing that via the board. So, but you're the first to know, and I would really love to have some Community Board 11 members in attendance. So again, that's November 12th, 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Are there any other announcements? Great.
I do. I have an announcement real
Go ahead.
quickly. At Art Park, we're having a Disco Vibrations event on the 17th, and on the 31st, we're having an adult daytime masquerade party.
Can you say that one more time? Sorry, I didn't get it fast enough.
December. No, oh my goodness, you got November in my head. October 17th, we're having a Disco Vibrations event. And then on October 31st, we're having a daytime masquerade party, an
Okay,
adult daytime masquerade party.
awesome. That sounds really fun. Thank you. All right, any other announcements? All right. Let's see. So we'll move on to informational updates, and just a heads up that we've changed it a little bit here. So instead of listing out every single community-based organization or art park, or like friends of parks groups and city agencies, we're just gonna do it like this, and whoever is here can raise their hand and present any updates that they have. So we hopefully waste a little less time. Are there any city agencies here with any updates? I think David was supposed to be here. Do you see him, Carly? I say Mikhail. And which city agency are you from?
I'm with the New York City Department of Environmental Protection.
Great, thank you. Go ahead with your update.
Is this the point in time where I'll present the solar system?
Oh, no, sorry, that will come in the presentations.
Okay.
That'll be just after this section.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Jessica, no updates for DP, just the presentation after this.
Okay, got
Thank
it.
Mhm.
Thank you. Is anyone from New York City Parks here today? Go ahead, Chris.
Hi, everyone. I'm actually with the Randall's Island Park Alliance, but I'm going to be standing in for David Salerno, who's the Deputy Administrator through New York City Park. So I don't know if you want me to wait for the second bullet or to go on the first.
Just go ahead. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you so much.
So I just wanted to give you guys a quick update about some of the things that have been happening in the park. We had a successful Harvest Festival on Saturday. It was one of our free events. We're really excited to have things back to normal in some ways. We did a number of things to ensure COVID safety, but we had about 750 people turn out. We had a local band perform, free pumpkins, crafts, a spooky trail, and again, everyone seemed to enjoy themselves for the day. We're really looking forward to our Halloween Boo Bash, which will be happening at the end of the month, sort of a costume parade at the landing of the 103rd Street footbridge for anyone who wants to come. Costumes welcomed, but not necessarily required. We are also working on, we've been doing an online reading group for anyone who's interested. The book for the next 2 months is Braiding Sweetgrass. And last month we got to have Roger Hernandez come and speak to us about his work with understanding more about the Lenape history in East Harlem, which was really nice. If anyone's interested, you should check out our website, randallsisland.org, under our events page for more of what we have to offer. But we're really excited. We have fall foliage tours, a history of plants. We're going to be continuing our Saturday Art at the Farm and Nature Explorers for kids to do crafts and learn more about the local environment. And we have lots of volunteer opportunities as well we'd love to see people at. We're going to be continuing to do the Jesse Owens Track and Field program through November at Tom Jeff Park. And we have 2 bike rides coming up, which we also have free city bike codes. So if anyone doesn't have a bicycle but still wants to attend, we'd still love to have you. One is going to be focusing on our compost operations, and the other one is going to be a tour of mushrooms that can be found around the park. We've been regularly continuing to donate our produce that we've been growing at the urban farm to Little Sisters of the Assumption. And we're really excited. At the end of the month, we'll be having a rice festival at CPE2 during the week with students. And generally speaking, our fall field trips are up. We have a couple of in-person ones scheduled, as well as a number of virtual. If anyone has any contacts with schools or teachers that might be interested in that, we'd love to set them up. And we specifically have our space reserved for East Harlem schools. So we would really love to fill up our calendar with more students. And that's it for us.
Great, thank you so much. And the programs for East Harlem schools, can you just repeat that one more time?
Yes, so we have both the Waterfront Stewardship Program, which focuses on coastal ecology and the wetlands that we have in the park, and the Edible Education Program, which takes place on the urban farm. All are available during weekdays for schools to come out to. We know that buses have not been made available for this year, so an ideal group would be able to easily walk over, but we're happy to accommodate so they don't have to walk all the way across the park, but we can perhaps meet them a little bit closer in order to maximize our time together. And that information can also be found at randallsisland.org under educational programs. We also have a bunch of virtual opportunities, activities that can be downloaded in videos, but we've had those for a while. So
great, thank you so much. Are there any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? All right, I'm gonna check one more time. Is Dave from NYC Parks here today? All right. Go ahead, Xavier.
Hey, everyone. Thank you. So glad to see you. Happy October as we lead through this month to Halloween and all the festivities. I'm so glad to hear the announcements of the events that are being engaged. So just to remind everyone, our Open Streets program, which we were the first in Northern Manhattan and the pilot up here at 101st between Lexington and Park, is still ongoing through the end of the month. And we have, and taking off the CB hat, putting on the other hat I wear in the community is that I'm the festival director for the International Puerto Rican Heritage Film Festival, and which has collaborated with all the entities, including El Museo, And they will do a Road to the Festival screening. We start on the 16th, and then the 23rd, El Museo is bringing out some archived footage of New Rican films. So please come out. That's on the 23rd, and then we'll have subsequent screenings on the 30th, and then the last one right before the festival begins. So thank you. Sorry, I meant to get that into the announcements, but was a little slow there with finishing dinner duties here. So if you have any questions, I'll drop my my personal email in the chat for anything related to those activities and anything board related. I'll drop that one as well. So thank you so much. Have a great meeting.
Thank you, Xavier. And what day did you say the festival screening begins on?
So the Road to the Festival starts on the 16th, and it's every
Okay.
Saturday. And then the actual film festival itself will be the 10th through the 14th. We will be going live, COVID safe. And for those that don't know me, I am a producer in film and television commercials by trade, and I've been producing films all throughout COVID, and very touch wood, knock on wood, proud to say no positive cases through the run of show, mainly because I'm just very militant with protecting everyone. So hope to be able to return to normal soon enough. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? All right. Thank you, Xavier. It appears that we do not have anyone from NYC Parks, but I was notified that Sheena, as we are aware, was relocated to another district. So we will be having a replacement for her by the name of Dave Williams, who's not here today, but we look forward to welcoming him at our next meeting. And then let's move on to Parks advocacy groups. Anyone would like to report on the Marcus Garvey Park Alliance or Friends of the Art Park? Go ahead, Stacy.
Hi, just two quick partner updates. Jessica, I don't know if you were going to give this update or if you wanted me to give it about TA.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. So last week, Jessica and I met with donors and members from Transportation Alternatives. We met with them at 120th Street. And we talked about the Esplanade. We talked about Harlem Greenway Lake and the importance of forming, good community partners. So I think that was a really nice example of the two of us coming together with both of our groups to then talk to TA and, and tell them that we're all working together to create one, continuous pathway that's really great for the entire community, and that it's important for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're, not in CB11, you might live down on 50th Street, but you want to ride your bike up here, it's important. So I think it was really, we were well received and people were really interested in what we had to say. So that was really good example of good partnership. So thank you for joining me out there. And then south of here, Hospital for Special Surgery is going to be starting their capital project, which is called the Kellen Tower Project. And so they are going to be blocking off part of the Esplanade from 71st to 78th. So any of you guys who are heading down or, you are down there at all, this project is going to be mammoth and will go over the FDR. We're very lucky that they will be helping us and do some repair work on the Esplanade, and we're going to work with them to get a little extra amenities and things that we can. They're a really good partner. They're really important in the community, and they really believe in the community work that they're doing. So groundbreaking started on the west side of the FDR this month, and then they'll start coming on over to the east side, and so the 72nd Street or 71st Street entrance will be moved so that people can still access the Esplanade from there, but then it will be closed between 71 and 78 for the next couple of years. And so, that's just for anybody who's traveling down south of where we are right now. And that's it for us.
Thank you so much, Stacy. And yes, it was a wonderful event and great to meet and talk to people within and outside of our district about the important work that we're all doing on the waterfront, and talking about Richard Toussaint and kicking off their bike tour around Manhattan and the Bronx. So thank you for inviting me, and it was a great event. Are there any questions from the board for Friends of the East River Esplanade? Go ahead, Michelle.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to find out, is there another path that's going to be developed so that bikers can circumvent that blocked off space between 71st and 78th? It seems that it had only been open for a year. And so now it's going to be closed again for, I think she said about 2 years or more.
Yeah, so the whole construction project is going to go until 2024. I don't know how long the Esplanade will be blocked off. There isn't space there to create an additional path, but you can follow the capital project. So if the folks at HSS somehow figure out a way to, I don't know if they're blocking off the FDR, I'm not sure what they're going to do, but you can follow the capital project. I'll put it in the chat, but HSS is going to have a capital project website dedicated to that, and then the public can go and answer in questions and get quicker updates than I can give you guys monthly. But of course, I'm happy to pass your questions along. But as far as I know, Michelle, there is not a dedicated bike path or pedestrian path that will circumvent that other than going up York Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Are there any questions from the public? Michelle, if you could lower your hand. I think the Zoom has stopped us from the immediate lowering, so we'll have to stay on top of that. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much, Stacy, and thank you for being here.
Thank
Nice
you.
to see you. All right. Are there any other updates from park advocacy groups or other community-based organizations? Go ahead, Debbie.
Good evening, everyone. Art Park, which is located on 120th Street between Lexington and 3rd, we've seen an uptake in more homelessness. It's kind of like a lot more than normal, where folks are really camping out, bringing huge carts with them and stuff. So I'm just wondering if something happened at Ronald McNair, or because it just seems like there's much more folks. We've been finding some needles, but it just seems like there's more of traffic and folks really staying in the park. We have our regulars, but now we have more. And I was just wondering if anything happened at Ronald McNair. We're still struggling with some of the impact from the plants that were taken out of the center. Out of the 6 that were transplanted to another spot in the park, maybe 3 have really kind of survived, and it's really sad that happened. So I think this is just a cautionary tale for us to consider, that when Parks goes in and does things like this, that they provide a maintenance plan, in terms of like following up with the gardeners and what's their plan there, because it was a quick fix where it was kind of like a slash and burn, and we didn't have any real plan in place. We know that there's a whole irrigation system there that's not being utilized. And once again, Art Park was forgotten in terms of like the movie Under the Stars. I know it sounds trivial and petty, but I want my damn movie. It's like I put in the request, and last year, I was assured from the parks that they were going to work with us to develop programs, and that did not happen. So I'm looking forward to a new relationship with this manager to see if there's a way that we can kind of upgrade that for folks, because I have to say I was a little bit jealous with all the cool movies that were out and being played and screened. And, we talked to park staff about this early enough in the season, at least for it to be, included. So we're just trucking along, doing our thing. And finally, the only thing that I'm going to recommend is that perhaps the Parks Department website for permits be revamped in a way that when you put in a permit and there's a conflict, that it can pop up like it does on your calendar, because smaller groups that have tried to do events have been getting phone calls close to the event that there's a conflict. And they've already spent their limited budget on printing and ink and paper, and to go back and try and change that, it's really a burden to these smaller organizations. So I just wish that they can fix their website. That's it for me.
DW, I'm sorry to hear about all of that. Let us know how we can be of assistance. I know no one from New York City Parks is here today, but can follow up with them and see about both of those items. Are there any questions from the board or the public for Friends of Art Park? Great. Thank you so much, Debbie. And I'm just going to ask, Connie, do you have any updates for Marcus Garvey Park Alliance today?
Nothing particular, because everything's going so well in Marcus Garvey Park. You know, literally thousands of people having fun on a Sunday afternoon, everything from dancing to drumming till artist workshops. There's public art everywhere now in the park. All four corners of the park have new art installations. And just to Debbie's point, I did notice that we have less homeless people in Marcus Garvey Park, which probably means they've moved over to Art Park for whatever reason, but that's just a normal thing. They move around. And I think we all just have to do our best to recognize that they don't have anywhere to go, and be compassionate.
Any questions from the board or the public for Marcus Garvey Park Alliance? Okay, thank you so much, Connie. Are there any other updates from city agencies, park advocacy groups, or other community-based organizations? Please raise your hand. Great. Seeing that there are none, we will move along to our presentations and discussions. Our first presentation is DEP. Thank you for hanging in there. So the energy solar installations project at Wards Island Wastewater Resource Recovery Facility. Please feel free to unmute yourself and share your screen.
Yes, so I will give Mikhail a chance to share his screen and have a presentation for you all. Just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity, Jessica and Carly and CB11, to speak to you all today. And you guys have been very accommodating, and we hope to continue our partnership and to be good neighbors. So our presenter is Mikhail. He is our DP Energy and Greenhouse Gas Emissions Manager, and also the project manager for the Wards Island Wastewater Recovery and Resource Facility, solar PV and battery storage, as you can read the title here. This Wards Island facility is located within your CB11 district, and we hope you enjoy the show. And I'm gonna leave it, have Mikhail take over here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Humberto, for the introduction. Good evening to the community board and to everyone else who's able to join. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if it appeared for you.
Yes.
Great. As Humberto said, we'll be presenting this evening about a project that's currently in design for the Wards Island Wastewater Resource Recovery Facility. It is a very important project for New York City DEP because it's going to be the first time we have this type of solar panel over our process treatment tanks. And we want to prove that that concept works. We wouldn't be the first to do this. There are other utilities that have done this. But if we can prove that this works, we can get it at the rest of our sites as well, where feasible, and we can really make a big headway toward tackling climate change. On that note, we are, recognizing that climate change is an existential threat to humanity and the defining, issue of our generation. Between the One NYC mayoral directives, the Climate Mobilization Act of 2019, and our own strategic plan, we do have some pretty ambitious goals to try to mitigate the worst effects of climate change. They include 100 megawatts of solar PV, solar photovoltaic systems at city-owned facilities by 2025. And this Wards Island project would be as much as 10% of that goal alone at that one facility. So that's why it is a very important project for us and for the environment too. Other goals include municipal greenhouse gas emissions reductions from the fiscal year 2006 baseline. We have some interim milestones of 40% and 50% by 2025 and 2030 respectively, but the ultimate goal is an 80% reduction in total emissions by 2050. And at the bottom bullet, you'll see we also would like to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. So that would be the remaining 20% to get us to 100% by 2050. Additionally, we have energy neutral wastewater resource recovery facilities, or WRFs, you might hear me say later, by 2050. This goal means that we produce as much power as we export. So we produce and consume as much power as we export. And so we are energy neutral in that case. As a reminder, DEP, our mission is to enrich the environment and protect public health for all New Yorkers by providing high quality drinking water, managing wastewater and stormwater, and reducing air, noise, and hazardous material pollution. And it's important to us that climate change is part of this goal. And so in order for us to reach energy and carbon neutrality by 2050, we are looking at energy efficiency as the very first step to reduce our power needs. In order for us to get to energy and carbon neutrality, it's going to be very challenging, but by reducing how much energy we need in the first place, it's going to help alleviate the lift. We produce biogas as part of our wastewater treatment process, and it's basically the same component as natural gas, methane, that we can use on-site or off-site in order to reduce the amount of fossil fuels that we're using and that the community is using as well if we decide to export. Third goal, to maximize opportunities for traditional and innovative renewables. That includes solar systems like I'll be presenting this evening. 100% biosolids beneficial use by 2030. Again, as part of the wastewater treatment process, we produce biogas, but we also produce a solid product at the very end that can be used as a soil amendment to offset manufactured fertilizers, as well as to sequester carbon. Additionally, active forest land management in the watershed so that the forest, the land that we own upstate can sequester carbon from the atmosphere, and other water energy nexus initiatives, including the green infrastructure that you might see deployed throughout the city, is sequestering carbon from the atmosphere actively as that vegetation grows, as well as mitigating stormwater flows to our wastewater plants and helping our wastewater plants save energy from having to treat that stormwater. Our renewable energy program, specifically for this project, we're partnering with the Department of Citywide Administrative Services and the New York Power Authority to develop this project, in addition to a couple other facilities, but this evening is just about Wards Island. And we've retained the services of Amoresco to design, construct, own, operate, and maintain this solar PV system. It's what's called a power purchase agreement, where we basically provide them the land and we purchase the power. We're the off-taker from them, and Amoresco handles the rest. The designs are going to conform to industry best practices, but they'll also allow us the opportunity to maximize our renewable energy generation so that we can make headway toward tackling climate change together. We're going to be collecting feedback like we are here presenting to you this evening, and from other stakeholders as well as from the on-site operational teams, and carefully developing this design so that it doesn't interfere with DEP's operation and maintenance needs. A little overview of the Wards Island plant. For those of you who don't know, it's located in New York City on Wards Island, east of the elevated Hellgate rail line adjacent to Randall's Island Park. I saw Randall's Island Park Alliance on the line earlier. Hello to you. Thank you for being our partner. The facility was originally constructed in the 1930s and now serves a population of over 1 million residents, has a capacity to treat 275 million gallons of wastewater a day. As a matter of scale, Ward's Island is 1/8 of DEP's energy consumption overall. That's in city and upstate. So it is a pretty large facility. And that's another reason why this project is very important for us. Current preliminary designs are at about 7.8 megawatts of AC total. And I know, people may not know what is a megawatt, but that's about how much power 1,950 households use in New York State annually, which is hopefully offsetting, again, a significant amount of fossil fuels for that power instead, because much of New York City's power comes from natural gas. It's also the equivalent of taking about 722 vehicles, specifically gasoline vehicles, off the road permanently. Again, making headway towards climate change mitigation. We're looking at several different types of solar for this project. Flat roof, which is just what people may traditionally know as rooftop solar. We're looking at carport installations, which would be elevated canopies, as you see here, over parking spaces. Those provide multiple benefits to us as well, because they'll be able to make snow plowing easier as the snow falls off in one direction of the way the panels are angled. And thirdly, the most significant portion of the project is our tank mounted. So you can see here an example of a treatment tank in Washington, DC, where the solar panels, just like the carport, are a canopy style, but over process treatment tanks. It's a bit hard to see here, but I'll zoom in. The circles show the areas where we are currently developing and designing where the solar panels will be. We'll have a carport installation in this area, over our treatment process tanks here. More treatment process tanks here. We'll actually have a rooftop here as well, and this rooftop here, and we'll have a large parking canopy structure here as well. I will say that New York City DEP, we are a unique city agency in the sense that we have a very large footprint within New York City. You can see here this wastewater treatment plant takes up a certain amount of space. And we have property that is really primed for renewable energy generation. It's not very common to find this much open property in New York City, 5 boroughs that is, coastal, not a lot of obstructions. We don't have a lot of tall buildings around this plant, for example, and really primed for solar. So, it's maybe another reason why this project is so important to us and to the environment and the climate. We have a few renderings here of what it might look like. Very early designs at this point in time, but this is the goal. And solar PV systems, solar photovoltaic systems, they consist of different pieces of equipment. The solar panels produce the power. The inverters convert the power into a form that's usable for our facilities. And the inverters can have different types. They can be mounted onto poles as shown in this photo. They can be separate from the entire system on their own pad. They can be on the roof. Here's an example of panel board transformer system disconnects that we'll be installing as well. These are all important components of a successful solar photovoltaic system. And another part of this project is that we'll be designing and installing battery storage. This battery storage is an important part of the project because it allows us to store any excess solar power that we're producing. If the plant is not using all of the solar power at that moment, the extra solar power will be stored, and then we could use it in the overnight when the sun is not shining. The other benefit that these batteries can provide to us is that we will be able to charge them overnight when power is cheaper for DEP and use the batteries during the daytime. And that'll help us on our peak demand charges, which will have a direct impact on our energy expenditures and positive impact, a decrease on those as well. As far as schedule and impacts from construction, the design is ongoing and will continue through fall 2022. So we are still fairly early, but we'll be designing and through that time, construction will begin thereafter and proceed into 2023. And we do anticipate the impacts will be minimized as much as possible and to the best of our abilities. For trucks, we anticipate less than 200 throughout the construction period. And as you can see, it's almost a year of construction. So 200 trucks is hopefully an acceptable amount for delivering the panels, the inverters, the batteries, the steel, the racking, and other materials. And as far as construction noise, it is expected to be minimal. The panels themselves as well are expected to produce minimal, if any, basically no noise. I'm just going to flip back to this photo to show you the scale of the amount of equipment and materials that we're going to need to transport to the site. So I know that 200 trucks sounds like a lot, but when you look at how many solar panels it's going to be, and when you look at this aerial image, we are going to really try to minimize the amount of truck deliveries as much as possible. And that's it for me today. I'm happy to take any questions. I don't know if any came in. Let me see. Zoom is not letting me go back.
Thank you, Mikhail. Any board members or public, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. I just have a couple quick questions, probably overarching, but so just curious how you mentioned the battery storage will be used to help with peak demands. One of the issues that we've been experiencing recently is, in the high heat days that, air conditioning is most needed by residents, and, we've got notifications as a community to reduce our energy usage, including turning off our air conditioning unit, while other parts of the city are allowed to maintain full power. Just curious what if there's any prioritization of these services to certain areas in the city, and or if that will be more unilateral.
Thank you for asking that, Jessica. You reminded me that the batteries are also able to be deployed for what's called demand response. And what that is when Con Ed or in Long Island, the Long Island Power Authority would call on its customers during peak times, think of 3 days in a row, 90+ degrees outside, and everyone's running their air conditioners, and there is an impending risk of brownouts or blackouts. The batteries at the Wards Island plant that we're proposing, the benefit will be that we can use those to help take a little bit more of the plant off of the electric grid during those very sensitive, vulnerable times, to help mitigate the risk of those brownouts and blackouts even further than we already are. DEP is actually an active and valuable participant in the demand response program. We commit almost 20 megawatts of power. And remember how many households I said 7 megawatts was, it's about 1950. So we commit about 20 megawatts of reductions when demand response events happen, which means we're taking off the grid a significant amount of power in order to help prevent those blackouts and brownouts. As far as why they're happening in this specific community board, it's probably a question for Con Edison, because they're the ones who maintain their electrical distribution infrastructure in the substations there. But I do know that there are some areas of New York City that are just more vulnerable than others. There are areas where Con Ed's infrastructure can't meet or is struggling to meet the growing population there, the development that's happening there. And so demand response is a way for Con Edison to call on residential, commercial customers, as well as entities like DEP, to help prevent blackouts and brownouts, while Con Ed, over the amount of time that it will take, which is years, develops their electrical infrastructure to be able to withstand the population that, frankly, New York City is seeing boom.
Great, thank you so much. I think in general, I would just say that probably residences and take priority over Times Square and other commercial institutions, and keeping their power going. Just a comment, hopefully, that just to make that aware.
Absolutely, and I would encourage you to give that feedback to Con Edison, the electric utility, for sure.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions from the board? I saw Michelle's hand up, but I'm not sure if you had a question.
My question was answered. My question was basically your question, so was already answered. Thank you very much.
So you're all in the same line. Thank you, Michelle. Are there any other questions from the board? Go ahead, Carly.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not sure if you covered this. I'm sorry if you did. I would have missed it then. I'm curious about the construction period. Specifically, is DEP going to be contracting and workers? Like, will you be working with a private company that builds solar panels? And if so, can you talk a little bit about that process? If local workers will be employed? Oh, thank you. Sorry. Okay.
I don't think this fully answers her question though.
Yeah. So I guess the point that I'm getting at is that there are.
Sorry, everyone. I thought I had unmuted myself. I apologize. I'll try to answer Carly's question. Let me reshare my screen. So I had spoken a little bit about the entities here as project stakeholders. So just to clarify, Amoresco is the one who services have been retained to design, construct, own, operate, and maintain the system. They will be hiring the contractors who will be providing the materials, delivering the materials. And contractually, the relationship is Amoresco is selling the power to the New York Power Authority, and the New York Power Authority is selling the power to the city, DCAS and to DEP. DEP is acting as an off-taker of the power, which means we're purchasing the power and we're hosting the actual equipment itself. Could you repeat your question though, if that didn't?
Yeah. So what I was getting at was there are a lot of workforce training programs that focus on training low-income communities and in solar power, in building solar power. And I was wondering if DEP had any power or any say in the hiring practices for the construction of solar panels. There's a need for good paying jobs in our district. And I think that this would be a wonderful opportunity to employ residents of the district and partner with workforce development and job training programs that are training residents in our district in building solar power. It's a good opportunity for green jobs.
I absolutely agree. And any job that's working on this project is a green job because it's a solar project. I will ask you though, if Dylan Rolleri is on the line, if you could make him a panelist and unmute. Dylan is with the Department of Citywide Administrative Services. He might have insight into this, or if not, we can get back to you. The Department of Citywide Administrative Services is the one that's contracting with the New York Power Authority. And so he might be able to comment on this. And again, if not, we can get back to you. Dylan, are you on the line?
He's on the line. I just promoted him to panelist, so it might take him a moment.
Yes. Hi, Mikhail. It's Dylan here from DCAS, Department of Citywide Administrative Services. So for one, that's actually a great question. I'm glad that you brought that up. That is a part. So Amoresco is going to be the owner and developer of this project, but part of this project is to try to retain local workers. In terms of exact specifics, who their subcontractors are right now, I don't think all that has been finalized, but that is as the city, DCAS, we have been working with Solar One and trying to build up, as well as the Department of Education, other agencies throughout the city, to build up a pipeline of local workers within New York City to expand green jobs, starting right from the technical schools ready within New York City, and trying to get them into internships and the ability to get trained as well through some nonprofits like Solar One, so we can continue to build up the local workforce in clean energy. So that is certainly something from a city side that we're really looking to continue to build up.
Okay, great. And I think that if we could maintain communication with you throughout the process, specifically when it comes to the hiring portion of the project, that would be great. It would actually be better if we started that communication beforehand, because maybe there could be like I feel like there needs to be job training first and then they get employed. So the job training should ideally happen prior to the start of employment. So if I think that the committee would agree, but feel free to speak up if not, that at some point there should be a conversation with our Economic Development and Culture Committee. Thank you for your
Committee
response.
agrees, Carly. Thank you so much. And just to clarify what the ask is tonight, are you asking for a letter of support or mainly community input at this point?
A letter of support would be ideal, kindly, if it's possible.
So I think we've been working on cross-committee collaboration, which with the local hiring, as Carly stated, this potentially affects our Economic Development and Culture Committee. So I think we can explore taking a vote on that, on a letter of support today, and then pass you along to that committee for their input. When is the letter of support needed by?
Immediately.
Usually.
we know you work with us and you always try to be as supportive as possible. So when, as soon as you can, but I'll if you need a specific date by then, I'll try to get one for you. We do appreciate your help.
Okay, great. I know Carly was suggesting potentially we take a vote tonight, but I don't want to avoid the issue that we had last month where we might vote one way and another committee votes another. So I think, do you have the ability to join let's see. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just trying to think of the best way to do this. What we did with a presenter last month was, sort of hold on taking a position until we get information from other committees and take a vote at executive. In the case that you would be able to potentially join the Economic Development and Culture Committee this month, we could do the same thing at executive this month and provide a letter potentially at full board at the end of the month. Go ahead, Diane.
I may have missed, but what is the timeline for this? What year are we looking to implement?
Construction finishes in 2023 sometime.
2023, so we have already begun?
No, the project is currently in early stages of design.
Right now, from the way you responded on the workforce, there's really no plan around local hiring with the workforce, with the contractor.
Hi, Diane. This is Dylan again from DCAS. I would say it's part of the process right now that we're going through. To verify qualified subcontractors to work with Amoresco, our developer, and NYPA, who we're ultimately buying the power from this power purchase agreement. Some additional insight I can give for some of our other portfolios that we're working on from a city perspective. We have been, pushing all of our, our developers and so forth to, of course, follow any guidelines within the agreements for local workers, and they have been doing that. In fact, on the other agency side, we're also working on a number of school buildings right now, actually over 80 sites right now that are in development or some stage of design and construction. And we've also partnered with Solar One, which is a non-for-profit that's been building up local workforce specifically in green jobs. and renewable energy. So that is something we've been working on in some of our other portfolios. So that is stuff that we would like to bring to this new particular project as well. They're a very, very good partner. They've really, been trying to build up a local New York City workforce to build these projects. That's something that, we think is a win-win for everybody. We've also, again, on a different portfolios, partnered with the Department of Education in working with some of their non-for-profits to take students, seniors, within the career and technical education side of the DOE to have them work actually on a few of our projects over a few of these past summers to build up the workforce as well through our CTE programs with New York City. So that is something, that, is certainly exciting about, solar projects is, it really is a great opportunity for the community to also potentially get engaged, on the construction side. So, it's certainly, for this project, as Mikhail mentioned, we're still early in design. This is a unique project. This is a first of its kind for New York City. There's only been a few at this moment, sort of wastewater treatment facilities around the country that have been used, and this developer has produced projects on a similar type of facility. So that's ultimately why they were chosen. And we're certainly looking forward to continuing the design and ultimately building a very successful project for the city of New York.
So while I agree with you, Dylan, that it's probably exciting to have this design and that Rhode Island will be one of the first to get it. I also think about, and David, you can jump in here anytime you feel like it, particularly from the education portion, given all the issues around climate change and resiliency and the need for people, our young people, to get not only engaged in it, but also to learn more about how, because there will be a lot of jobs in the future around this. I think I wouldn't feel comfortable tonight voting on this until we get some more discussion out of either ECHO and or education, youth and education, but clearly around the whole hiring aspect. I hear what you're saying, but I don't hear any specifics.
Thank you, Diane. Just a question for you all as presenters, if you would be ready to present on a hiring plan at the Economic Development and Culture meeting this month.
What time would that meeting be?
I believe it's on the 19th at 6:30 p.m.
That is 2 weeks from now, I believe. I think
Yes.
we should be able to. We could probably get back to you by then.
Okay, great. So just generally, and similar to what we discussed last month as a committee, if we could just get a general consensus as to support or non-support for this project, with the caveat of EcoDev having similar discussions and getting more in depth with the local hiring process, and then potentially submitting a letter of support with conditions as to local hiring with our guidelines. If we were to vote on this at executive, are there any thoughts as to support or non-support from our committee? Go ahead, Michelle.
I would like to find out, as another condition, would this affect a lowering of our energy bills, as in cost per family? How would this our energy out, not just by way of giving us, in case of a brownout or a lowering of energy during the high usage time, but also cost effectiveness? I would like that to be also a condition, and to have numbers, if that's possible, in the upcoming meeting.
Okay. So we won't have that information today. So I think this is just general support or non-support. But if either of the presenters have any comments on the impact to cost to the general consumer, that would be great.
I'll take
Sorry.
this one from DCAS's side. So just to clarify, this particular project is on city land. It's you know, it's directly, you know, expense for DEP and DCAS the city. So this, you know, let me make it won't necessarily, you know, the point of this project is really to reduce emissions and to, you know, bring down the emissions from, you know, all our facilities in New York City. One thing that was certainly brought up earlier is, you know, there's very few locations in particular within New York City that could offer you know, large solar project opportunities. When this project is ultimately built, this would be the largest solar system in New York City. And part of that goes to just because of how, you know, tight and dense New York City is. So, you know, the purpose of this project here is to reduce emissions for New York City.
Just to follow up, I am extremely excited about reducing emissions in New York City. I just wanted to make sure that the cost of the project does not somehow end up with consumers. That is my desire, to make sure that this does not happen. I love and encourage anything that would decrease the crisis of climate change that is happening right now. I just want to make sure that it doesn't affect our pockets in our community.
And it would not. It's not a you know, something that's going to be adding to any, you know, public's pocket. This is, and that's part of the reason why we're doing this over, you know, a 20-year span. Is this particular method of going solar is significantly cheaper than other options if this was, you know, taking from our capital budget and deploying, you know, a solar system. You know, this is a project that is expected to, you know, at least power the facility 20 years. You know, with the existing agreement that is in place. So it is not expected to add any additional burden to the public. And, you know, the point is to, you know, ultimately reduce emissions from, you know, from New York City's energy consumption. And then also on the, you know, sort of battery side is to, you know, provide some additional benefits beyond just, you know, the typical solar connected to the facility. Some that were brought up today on, you know, the sort of, you know, peak load management, you know, being another aspect to, you know, help, you know, keep the emissions down from the facility on Ward's Island.
Great. Thank you, Michelle, for your question. And thank you to the respondents. Alonso, go ahead. Alonso, did you lower your hand or do you have a question?
Sorry, I had to click on mute. I just wanted to say either second or say aye to your motion, Jessica, to push this item along to another committee to get their input, and then ultimately, if agreed upon, write the letter of support with the caveats you mentioned earlier. So I'm just agreeing and seconding your motion.
Great, thank you, Alonso. Not technically a motion, but just a general consensus that we're building. So if anyone disagrees with the idea and at least agreement by myself and Alonso to push this to EcoDev for their input on local hiring, and then provide a letter of support should they agree. at executive this month with our local hiring guidelines. If you disagree with that, please raise your hand.
I'm on the phone, but I disagree at this point until we go through Echo Dub.
Right.
Echo Dub. Just
David.
because again, this is the city and they know what we're asking for when they come before us, and to not be prepared with that already and to not be sure when a letter of support is due, that means they were told to rush in here and get this done.
Right. And
you don't know
David,
the date you need. When's the proposal due? That's the date the letter of support is due to be submitted. So, you know, it's again, the walk around, the talk around, and nothing will get done. So no, it does not have my support.
all right, thank you. I appreciate that. And just David and I spoke separately about the Drive Shack. So the general process is that, you know, we will have as a committee and a direction in terms of support or non-support. And then each of the other committees that these items touch will also get that general consensus from their bodies. And then we will meet at executive and convey those feelings to the executive committee in order to take a final vote. So knowing whether or not you support or do not support this is important. So that when we go to executive, I can confidently say that, you know, should David's concerns be met by EcoDev, then it seems like we have support unless anyone else has any objections.
I just have to say that David is completely right with this process of ignoring the community board standards and practices. And I think that there has to be a strong position sometimes where you just say no and just communicate once again that moving forward, if groups come, that maybe we should have a checklist, you know, that says before they present, do they have their deadline? Do they have their budget? Do they have all these other things? And if they don't, we don't listen to them. And it's not trying to be confrontational, but it's just that this practice of, you know, community boards with just whatever, we just do the runaround, the same old, in times that we're in require different strategies. So I just want to go on record saying that I like for this committee to entertain some kind of checklist or something like that, so that even before you come to us, you know what you have to bring, because playing this game over and over again, and this is nothing against you. I know that you work for the organization and you just have to come and present, you know, but your commissioners know, and it just gets a little boring. You know, it really does. And you just don't want to, we should just have signs that kind of pop up and say, where's the letter? You know, it becomes like the Muppet Show after a while. I'm sorry.
So Jessica, if I may.
Go ahead.
This is Umberto. I'm with Department of Environmental Protection, Community Affairs. And thank you for explaining the process to us again, Jessica, and the committee. We appreciate the process and the review that goes into every presentation, request, and agenda item. We truly appreciate that. But part of the reason why we're here is also just to inform you, as I stated before, we are neighbors. So this is a new project, which is in early stages of design, as Michaela stated, and where we just wanted to present to the committee that we thought would be best to share this information and dissect. And honestly, you know, we are not pressuring. We do want you to have this information. That's why we're here. We're actually here to answer any questions you may have with this project. And we appreciate Dylan being on as well with DCAS. Perhaps we could have, if there are follow-ups or another meeting that you would like us to go to in terms of, like, I know you mentioned economy, the committee, excuse me, perhaps we can have a representative from Americo, excuse me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Mikhail can help me out with that. But yeah, just wanted to share our thoughts. And again, we just want to present. So you're aware of this project that is in your neighborhood. And we're here to take any questions that, you know, aside from obviously we understand the economy is an important issue and local hiring. I know for a fact, working with Eastside Coastal Resiliency, Solar One is the non-for-profit organization that the city's also partnering with. So it's absolutely something that can be discussed and partner with. Thank
We
you.
thank you for
Great.
answering
David,
our
if you could
questions.
wait, wait.
Yeah, I know, but you know what? We thank you for answering questions, but we need commitments. See, and I think that's the difference. Questions get answered, but commitments don't get made, or promises that may seem to be a possibility don't evolve. So
Right.
again, we need commitment of what you're going to give this community. This is a 20-year project. You're talking about jobs for a generation and the next generation. Where's the commitment to provide something for East Harlem? And again, this is city
David, I
agency.
understand your point, and I
mean,
just
again,
can't have
it's-
you interrupt the meeting like this. So if you could please raise your hand when you have a comment, that would be great. But I understand.
I'll say no more.
Thank you. I understand from both sides. Obviously, we did not give DEP or anyone today or ever have we given them a checklist as Debbie is describing, and I think that's a great idea, and I think that's something we can work on in executive and moving forward, because I think what Debbie and David are mentioning is a chronic issue that we have city agencies who should know how community boards work, coming in without being prepared and expecting that we can give letters of support immediately and without delay. So I think that's an institutional problem that we need to solve together. I don't think we're going to solve it tonight. So I think we can move forward with the understanding that that you will ideally be presenting to economic development and culture this month, and we will take a position as a dual committee at executive at the end of this month, ahead of full board, where we take a full vote, and then and hopefully provide you a letter of some kind with whatever conditions our two committees can come up with at the end of this month. Does that sound okay to you, Umberto?
That's perfectly fine.
Okay,
No problem at all.
All right. Thank you for understanding, and the community board is really doing our best as volunteers to I think all city agencies and it can work better with their community boards, and I think it works both ways. So we look forward to partnering with you and working towards these goals together, and thank you for being here.
Appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you to everyone for your opinions, and know that I'm not trying to silence you. Just want to follow the procedures, and since we don't have procedures in place for these kinds of things just yet, hopefully you all will contribute in the creation of those procedures, and we can work towards a better future. The second discussion or presentation that we have today is the budget request. So I'll hand it over to Carly. Thank you so much.
No problem. So let me just. So this is the second committee that I am reviewing these requests with. I am constantly looking for ways to streamline our discussion and make it more effective so that we're not sitting here all night, especially because this committee has a lot of requests to review. So first, I want to state the goal of tonight, which is to produce a committee recommendation for keeping or adding, removing, or revising requests. Yes, and to facilitate the conversation, the staff, Angel, Marlene, and I went through each request and produced the recommendation for each request. And to keep the conversation moving, what I'm going to do is go through all of them, give the reason, give the staff recommendation, give the reason, and then hopefully you have pen near you if there's any that you want to go back to review or discuss further. You can flag that once I finished it, and those that are not addressed will be considered as an acceptance of the staff recommendation. So this is a little bit different than how I did it at Public Safety and Transportation, but really the goal is to just keep the conversation moving. Okay, so let's see. I would like to know if everyone, if anyone needs me to zoom in more for you to read it, let me know.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. How's that?
Thank you. Much better.
Okay. All right. So the first two requests are about the Esplanade. The first one is about just repairing the Esplanade as a whole, and the second one is about the Harlem Greenway link. Both of these projects were funded, so we recommended the removal of these requests.
Yeah, and everyone can please feel free to raise your hand if you have any comments, but my position is that I agree, and that as you know, I think we are all aware that we need to track and measure how the funds that were applied to these two requests are being utilized. So I know Parks had given us a small breakdown of some of the funding, but we will need to follow up to get a full breakdown. But if anyone has any other comments about these two items, please raise your hand. Go ahead, Diane.
So while I hear what you're saying, I hear what you know, the fact that it's funded, but until it's actually complete, I think we should keep it somewhere on our statement of district needs. It doesn't have to be 1 and 2. Maybe it could be 10 or 11. I'm not looking at the whole page, so sorry, Carly, I can't see the whole page.
It's totally fine. I'm just going to respond to that if I may, Jessica. So, so we can certainly keep it on our statement of district needs. What I failed to mention at the start of this is that we are limited in the number of capital and expense requests. We have more, so it's 40 capital and 25 expense. There is more wiggle room in our capital requests. So that's certainly an option. The one thing I will say is that the way Parks projects work is they're not able to be announced as projects or even initiated whatsoever until all of the funding is secure. The staff's position is that, keeping requests on our budget request list does take up, I guess, prime real estate. I think that there is room for an argument. Of course, you're not required, the committee is not required to, agree with our request, our recommendation, but I will say there's more. I would be really open. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I would be really open to revising the second request is something I just thought of to specify the need for funding for a comfort station because we know that wasn't funded as part of the project. So I certainly hear what you're saying, and I think Diane, and I think it's worth keeping it. The statement of district needs and budget requests are not the only ways to advocate for an item, a project. I don't think it's necessary to keep an item on the budget request if it's been funded until the completion, just because of the limits on how many requests we can submit. And also having removed some of these items gives more, it opens up a space for additional budget requests, which I will get to at the bottom. But yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Carly. Do you have anything else to say about that, Diane?
Then it is incumbent upon the board as well as this committee to actively advocate for these two items if they're not on the request. And I don't think I can offer at this time how we could do that, but it's basically to remind the city, hey, listen, even though you funded it, we want to make sure that this happened. We don't want to have the conversation like we did at the full board about, for example, the statue of Tito Puente, which really didn't happen for 10 years. It was funded, but it didn't happen for 10 years. That's my concern.
Got it. Thank you, Diane. Michelle?
I am echoing what Diane had just said. I do want to have it where it is conditions of the comfort station, of regular updates. And it does not necessarily have to be on district needs, but it has to be somewhere where it's very clear that we are attuned to, we want to know what's going to be happening with these funds. It's fully funded, but we want the funds to be active and to lead to completion. And so therefore we want to have updates, if not every month, every other month, including the comfort station. I emphasize including the comfort station.
Thank you, Michelle. Russell?
I just want to add, when things are funded, if it could be noted that it was 100% funded or what percentage of funding, because just saying funded is not clear. At least that's not clear to me.
Russell, so the way New York City Parks projects operate is that they have to be 100% funded in order to even start. Like 100% of the funding needs to be slated in order for them to start. The reason why the comfort station is not included in the Harlem Greenway link is because that was not a part of the initial project. Yeah, but you know, the mayor announced $284 million for the Esplanade. That is completely funded. The funding is fully there for for the Esplanade. They wouldn't be able to initiate the project or even announce it without the full funding.
Thank you, Carly. Russell, do you have any other comments?
No, I don't.
Thank you. Debbie?
I'm just a process person, and what I would like to suggest, just for consideration, is that in keeping with not taking up too much space on this document, create the opportunity for a separate tracking, one, and two, that, you know, this committee meets almost 10 times or 9 times, that these items be put as a standing agenda item on the old business, right? Maybe every 1 or 3 months or 2 months, so that at least you get them to come back to it at least 2 times or maybe 3 times. So that then, as our own processes accelerate for accountability, that can be a way to do that. So I'm just gonna suggest that for consideration. And, you know, every time and then the other thing I'm going to suggest is that every time they announce a $200 and something million bathroom, the first thing is, where's the bathroom? You know, it's like the first project at the press conference, the minute that they put it out, it's like, where's the bathroom? You know, so that it just becomes a standard mantra, so to speak. Yeah. So I'm gonna leave that alone, but I think that's, for consideration, a process that we can embrace.
Great.
Thank you, Debbie. And actually, you're not the first person to mention that idea. And that is something that I will certainly consider and report back to the District Needs and Budget Committee about. I agree that there does, just because we remove a request, it by no means means that the community board stops advocating for it. I do think that this committee does an excellent job in keeping track of projects that are happening in our district. It doesn't mean that there shouldn't be a process in place that tracks all of the requests that we have removed.
Right, and that's my point, because, you know, the turnover of community board members is constant, you know, but so should be the tracking.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you. And yeah, I do want to say that we started, we applied for a community planning fellow through the Fund for the City of New York. And this week, I met the fellow who will be working with me on fine tuning the District Needs and Budget Committee process further. So as right now we're focusing on getting the requests and the statement in. But following that, we will be implementing like a feedback mechanism, and also, just reviewing how the process went and reviewing the ideas that board members brought forward and then implementing them. So we have a dedicated fellow for this purpose, and I think it's a great idea for a project for her to work on.
Thank you so much, Carly. And just given Carly's response and the fact that we have 30 plus requests to go through, if we could focus our efforts on the specific requests and leave the process conversations for the district needs and budget committee, we can tackle those larger questions there. David?
So I guess I shouldn't ask, but very quickly.
You can ask.
So sometimes they say things are partially funded, and I think that that's always very confusing as well, because what part is actually funded? And that goes back to like Russell, So if Carly, like what you just said, is something is funded in total, they begin the project. But then if they say something is partially funded, do they not begin the project? And that's where the money sits?
Yeah.
And nothing
So
gets done?
I know that you're specifically talking about requests through the Youth and Education Committee, where DOE, like each agency answers very differently. So, while New York City Parks doesn't, start projects until they're fully funded, DOE often gives those responses. So I think that's something we should talk about at that committee, but I hear you.
Great. Yeah, no, thank you.
Valuable question. Thank you, David. Connie?
I just wanted to say that Carly had a really excellent suggestion by removing this project and simply adding the bathroom. And the only other thing I will say is that the project had enough money in it for the bathroom from the very beginning. The bathroom was not included because the Parks Department did not want to include it. They have an adequate budget to build that park and include a bathroom. Their answer whenever you ask for one is it's not in the budget. But I think it's time that we recognize that we simply have to say project starts with a bathroom in the budget. But yes, Carly had a very simple suggestion, and it's just the way to move forward.
Thank you, Connie. I agree. And just a caveat on the bathroom, since we did receive letters of support, don't tell the elected officials I said this, but they had provided support letters for this grant. So if the grant falls through, guess what? We're coming to them for the money. So go ahead, John.
Good evening, everybody. I have a question for Carly. I'm not sure if this is feasible, but since this particular item the suggestion is to remove it, could it be removed from the list but placed in the statement of district needs? I don't know if it's feasible or not, but I'm just asking a question.
Yeah, it's very feasible. There's no limit for the statement of district needs. And I think that generally in the statement of district needs, there needs to be a mention of what Connie just said, starting with the comfort stations, the need for comfort stations in our parks. But yeah, answer to your question is yes, John.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it sounds like the consensus is to remove the first request regarding repairs to the East River Esplanade and to include it in the statement of district needs, though not as a request, and to revise the second request regarding the park to emphasize the comfort station and keep that on the list. Are there any objections to this direction? John, if you could lower your hand. All right, so we'll move on to the next one, and yes, if we could just go one by one and focus on consensus as to the direction as to that request, that would be great. Thank you.
All right, so the next one is the sanitation garage, the dual district garage. We have not received funding for this, so the staff recommended keeping this request.
Agree. Does anyone disagree with that? Please raise your hand. All right. Any other comments about this request? All right, we'll move on.
The next one is a comfort station at Thomas Jefferson Park. This also came up as part of our district budget consultations. It's still a need and has not been funded yet, so the staff recommended keeping this request.
Does anyone on the committee disagree or have anything to add to that recommendation? All right, we agree and we'll move on.
Excellent. The next, this is the 107th Street Pier. It is funded and I recommended removing this. It's been funded in full.
Agree, that was funded by council member Rodriguez. Right?
Yeah, well, assembly member, but yes.
Assembly member. Oh my goodness.
And the mayor.
I'll never get it right. All right, I agree. Does anyone disagree? Just raise your hand. Excellent. Moving on.
Okay. This is regarding the installing green infrastructure along the East River Esplanade. We submitted this to the Department of Environmental Protection. This is a request. We selected from the form that is an accurate request to DEP. However, it said that we should contact the responsible agency regarding this request. The staff recommends revising this as it stands right now. It's not necessarily a budget request, more like it is posed more as a need. So if we could either remove it and put it in the statement of district needs, or revise it to include a more specific ask. And I put it in red because I thought this warranted a little bit more discussion. Or I just needed a little bit more guidance from the committee.
Okay, so just for my understanding, we asked DEP this request and they said that we were asking the wrong agency.
Yeah, but
they're the agency for this.
Yeah, so I'm not opposed to keeping it because, as I said, we do have a little bit more wiggle room for capital requests than we do expense. So I think that if we revise it, make it a little bit more specific, and maybe accompany that with like a follow-up action, then it's worth keeping. I think that we just need to be clear with New York. We need to be clear. We need to know exactly what green infrastructure measures are being taken as part of the reconstruction of the East River Esplanade. I know that the Harlem River Greenway is being raised 2 feet. Oh, Stacy has her hand raised and perhaps she can help.
Go ahead, Stacy.
So I guess my question is, and I don't know how this whole process works, so if that takes us down a rabbit hole, just ignore me, but can you revise the request instead of it going to me, since they said they're not good?
We're losing you a little bit, Stacy. Are you there? Okay.
Yeah, I don't hear her either.
I saw her come. Are you there, Stacy? Okay. I saw Stacy come on and off the call in general, so I think she might be having some connectivity issues. I did want to say that instead of targeting this at the East River Esplanade, as I don't think, I think part of the tracking of the funding of the first 2 requests is what portion of that goes towards these efforts. But I think that in general, we could expand this to say that we need green infrastructure improvements in the whole district. So you know, and I don't know, I imagine that touches DOT, parks, DEP, but I'm not sure which agency we would direct that at. I imagine it would be DEP, but I think that we could revise and expand this to not just be exclusive to the East River Esplanade. Go ahead, Diane.
I agree with you on that one, Jessica. It should be the East Harlem waterfront. CB11's East Harlem waterfront in its entirety. And the reason why I'm bringing it up, because we all know that the mayor's looking at a resiliency agency or committee, whatever, and the new administration is coming in also with some thoughts or some, I've heard him speak to green infrastructure. So I think we just need to, whether you leave it here or you put it into the district needs, we need to voice our need for green infrastructure on the waterfront, particularly.
Great. Thank you so much, Diane. Stacy, I see you're back. Are you back?
Yeah, hi, sorry about that. My internet keeps kicking me out. So I think Diane said what I would have said anyway, but I guess what I started to say, if you guys can hear me. So can you change the request from DEP to EDC because EDC is now taking over the project, or must it stay where it is and then you just decide what to do with it from here?
We can. So each one, let me pull up the request guide actually. So every time we submit, okay, I'm sorry, backtrack. So these requests specifically I'm gonna move a little bit in this column, in column C, these are pre-written needs that we select from a drop-down list for each agency. So EDC probably won't have this specific request on it. And when they do, like oftentimes, so I'm sure that EDC will be working alongside Parks and DEP specifically as it relates to the stormwater, like the green infrastructure part. What has happened in the past when we tried to submit requests to EDC that kind of fall outside the normal bounds for EDC, they just convert the requests to, they will just convert it to DEP. I can look into it though, and it's also worth following up with them, just generally to see what the plan is.
Great.
But I can look into it.
Yeah, I think that that could be a potential solution specific to the waterfront. EDC is managing those projects, but if we were to expand this to green infrastructure within our streets and our sidewalks and things, that I'm not sure whether that would be DOT or Parks or DEP. So does anyone have any other comments on this item? It seems like the direction potentially is to keep and revise it, to expand it, not just to the Esplanade, the whole Esplanade plus the district needs green infrastructure. And whoever agency deals with that, we will address it to them. Does anyone disagree? Thanks, Debbie. All right, we'll move on to the next one. Yeah.
Okay, this next request is enhancing park safety through design interventions, specifically installing more lighting in Marcus Garvey Park to increase the park safety. I have it as add because I personally am not sure about the status of this request, but as I expected would happen, Connie has her hand raised and I'd like to hear her input about the need for lighting in Marcus Garvey Park.
Go ahead, Connie.
So there's tons of lighting in Marcus Garvey Park, but there's also tons of it that doesn't work. So this is not an ad, this is a repair request. The lighting along the east side of the mountain has not worked in probably 15 years. And it's a complicated fix because it is a mountain of Manhattan schist and most of the lighting wiring needs to go up to the top. But It's a repair, it's not an add.
Does anyone disagree with adding this request to repair lighting in Marcus Garvey Park? Or have any comments on this?
I have a follow-up question. Oh, sorry.
I just want to say, I think it gets, we may be being too vague. Because when they say repair lighting, they usually say, oh, it's DOT, and because it is DOT who owns the lighting. And then DOT comes and said, it's parks because we can't climb up there and we can't access it. And that's been the runaround for, it's probably close to 20 years now. So it's not changing light bulbs. It's not fixing a lamp post. I don't know how to get specific, but the lights were built on the top of the Acropolis with sort of like a T shape at the top, which is meant to hang a ladder on it. And then a person climbs up the ladder in order to change a light bulb. DOT doesn't do that. And Parks has decided they no longer do that. So essentially, maybe that lighting needs to be replaced. The old system needs to be removed and incorporate a new system that would be repairable. It's really access, because the vehicles with the, what do you call them? They sort of have the bucket and that someone goes up in. They can't access the lamppost on the east side of the mountain. So it puts the entire east side of the park in the dark.
Yeah, so maybe Carly, we could add repair and or replace. Or up, yeah.
Yeah, it's maybe say specifically for the upper level of the park, the east side of the mountain.
Thank you so much, Connie.
You're welcome.
All right, any other comments on this request? We're going to add and revise.
Yeah, I just have a question for Connie, and I feel like this might have been discussed in the past, probably has been, but I have amnesia apparently. Has the park explored surveillance cameras in the yeah, and is that feasible? And
no, it needs the power of those light poles that don't work. It actually was funded or offered to be funded by Bill Perkins' office a couple of years ago. And he was going to fund the precinct to monitor them. And so, yes, that's when we discovered the problem with the poles. So you can't there's no power. So it's not repair the lights. There's no power on the east side of the mountain. So probably the wiring that somehow goes up the mountain or from pole to pole, somewhere in that pile of rock, it's not working. So yes, cameras wouldn't work. There's, it's a much larger job than putting in a new light pole.
Okay. Well, I think that builds a very strong argument for getting this checked out by either or both DOT and NYC Parks. This is not the first time these two agencies have like just the.
And they push it back on each other, and then
Yeah.
it just doesn't get done or repaired. They've even brought in a subcontractor at one point, or I was told they brought in a contractor who went up and said, I can't fix this.
Okay. So on Tuesday, we actually have our district service cabinet meeting where the office staff meets with our agencies. It's a monthly meeting we have, and I'm going to mention it there. Oftentimes, I don't always get a response from our partner agencies, but it's usually quite embarrassing for them if they don't have a response at the district service cabinet meeting. So I'll raise it there.
Thank you, Carly.
No problem. Okay.
Great. So it sounds like we have consensus on this request. Thank you, Connie, for your input.
Okay, the next one is Marcus Garvey Park again. It's the reconstruction of the Acropolis, the path, staircases, walls leading up to it. We just recommended revising it to get straight to the point. And Connie has her hand raised.
Go ahead, Connie.
This is actually a critical project. The stairs and some of the recent heavy rains, the metal supports literally washed through and came out from under the stairs. Some of those staircases are actually dangerous. And what will happen is they'll end up closing them and then no one will have access to the watchtower or those terraces. Yeah, I think this has become almost like an emergency project.
Any other comments from the committee? I agree that we should keep and revise this. If anyone disagrees, please raise your hand. Okay, great. Thank you, Connie.
Okay, so this request is regarding the synthetic turf field at Eugene McCabe Playground. And was mentioned as part of our district budget consultation with parks. It's still a need, it's not yet funded, so staff recommends keeping it.
Was this, was this something that we added because parks told us to add it, or was this previously on the list?
This request predates my time at the board.
Okay. Great. Yeah, so I do remember that they recommended that we ask for this. Go ahead, Connie.
Just so you know, I know that Parks has wanted to do this project for several years. We've been doing public art installations on those fences. And so every time we go through the borough office for approvals, it comes up that they want to do work there. They always tell us if we get the funding, we may have to remove the artwork. So they are anxious to do this project.
Thank you, Connie. If anyone disagrees, we will move. If anyone would like to disagree, otherwise we will add this request. And it sounds like it has a likelihood of being funded, given that Parks asked us to advocate for it.
Okay. So the next request is regarding Ps155 Playground, the comfort station at the playground. I don't know what is wrong with me as it relates to Ps155 Playground, but I just can't retain any information. I know that there is a parks, I know that they came to our committee to present their proposed the design for the upgrades to this playground, and I couldn't remember if an ADA compliant comfort station was part of it. I know that there's an existing comfort station, but I'm not sure if the upgrades were part of it. No.
I think I'm looking at the letter of support now. It said it was a schematic plan for the playground, including safety servicing, 8 new swings, spray showers, and a state-of-the-art mobility accessible playground equipment for different age groups. Site furnishings, including a water fountain and bottle filler, trash compactors, benches, lighting, and fencing. It does not say anything about a comfort station.
Okay, yeah, and I reviewed the presentation too, and it didn't say anything. I know this would not be the first time I forgot something about this project, so I just wanted to hold off on making a recommendation until I got confirmation from the committee. But if it has not been funded, I recommend keeping it.
Okay, so we can go ahead and keep it. Carly will follow up just to confirm that that has not yet been funded. Are there any disagreements or comments from the board? Okay, I'm struggling to keep up here, so give me one second.
The next request is the request that Debbie requested we put in last year about the renovation of the back fence at Harlem Art Park. The agency responded that further study is needed and therefore no position has been taken. And I guess I would like to hear from Debbie to know if any steps have been taken. And I recommended keeping it because to my knowledge, it has not been funded.
Thank you for that. Nothing has happened. It's getting worse. And that's all I can say. And I think I'm grateful for the opportunity during the summer to have the walkthrough so that the other committee members can see that it's just not Debbie that's, obsessed with it. There's definitely a potential problem, but I know that it's a major project. And at some point, I hope that it rises up and that it rises up and goes this way so that it kind of keeps moving along. So I don't have any other comments about it unless other folks have comments about the fence that they want to share. But I appreciate this being still on the list.
Go ahead, Connie.
I'll just add that this project worries me because I believe it's a cast iron fence, which means essentially that they can't repair it. They would have to restore it or replace it. And my fear is that they'd replace it with some really ugly, unattractive fence. It's not like if we could get the park landmarked as a scenic landmark and they would have to restore it to its, original design, then I would be really happy and excited about it. But I'm just worried that parks will just, rip it down. It is a decorative element. It's not a structural element. So I don't trust parks to do the right thing with that fence is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
I
very valid.
appreciate that. You're absolutely right, because sometimes you ask for something and then you just may get it. But, I think that there has to be some kind of further tracking or process to kind of ensure that whatever they do doesn't, we have to be clear on what we want.
Yeah,
And we
exactly. We have to be
very clear on what we want. We don't want them to say, oh, no, we can't afford it and rip it out. Because we've already experienced that in the park where it's kind of like, oh, you got a problem, let's just rip it out.
Cast iron cannot be restored or fixed without being a multi-million-dollar project. It's the same material as the fire watchtower. And it's not, I don't believe it's a wrought iron fence, which they could easily replace and repair because it's cast iron. I think the foundries don't exist that do this work anymore. There's like 2 in the United States. So that's my fear. What seems like just, fix the fence or replace the fence, I think it gets replaced with something that wouldn't be satisfactory. Or it just gets removed altogether, which wouldn't be horrible. It's really just a decorative element. But maybe this is something we really take a look at as to what we would recommend be done or what it could be replaced with, as opposed to, there's nothing in place that would encourage parks to restore it without it being landmarked, or it would simply be, this is a dinosaur and it's no longer, viable, and they would simply remove it.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying this so you totally understand. Be careful what you ask for.
And that's why I said it. That's why I said it. And now I'm like demanifesting it and putting it back. Because that's what I'm worried about. And the other thing is, down the road we have to have a conversation about taking care of the sculpture at a separate discussion, because that's a whole nother stuff that they do where they just slap the paint on it, and the artist is having major anxiety about the way that they do that. So we've got these 2 things there in the park that are clearly impactful.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps we could clarify the request to say repair or explore replacement with a equal or great with a element that's of equal value or greater than its existing conditions in collaboration with the Friends of the Harlem Art Park.
I don't know about even putting the word replacement in there, because then it's kind of like they see it like a green light.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, they said replace it, and that's all they see.
Okay.
And it's kind of like third graders, that's how they act. Candy. So I would suggest for consideration that, they explore how to begin a process to prep it, prepare it, and restore it, rather than, assess it for restoration, and then, work on that track. Because if we put that word replace, they'll be in there tomorrow. That they'll act on, they'll act on that, but they won't act on the other stuff. So, and then they'll say, look, aren't you happy?
Yeah. Go ahead, Connie.
Why don't we see what we can do to bring in like an independent consultant who does preservation work, like someone like Angel Ayllón could come and assess he would know what needs to happen to that fence. And we need someone to advise us on what this ask should be. This is not an emergency issue, so I think we might make sense to take the time.
We have time.
Yeah, I think it might make sense to take the time and bring in, we can work with Landmark East Harlem, and there's several preservationists who do this type of work, architectural preservationists who could advise us on it.
And are you then recommending are you recommending to revise it and keep it, or to remove it until we do that assessment?
No, I would say remove it and then put it back on for next year. Like this is something as a committee, I think we need to figure out what's the best thing to do, so that we're not cutting off our nose to spite our face, or, like when the commissioner came in and said, let's just paint it red.
Yeah, he had some red paint, lying around. He said, do you want us to paint it red? And I was like, no, I want you to, restore it at a level that we just don't use your leftover paint.
My only concern with removing it is that we have a a standing log of how many years it's been requested or whatever, and that's powerful and helping things move forward. So I don't know, Debbie, if you would agree or disagree about removing it.
I would rather have somebody come and look at it, and then put together a report for us that we can use as a guideline, and know what we're saying, because I just don't like the word replacement, for me. I would rather replace it when they have a plan in place to put it back.
Okay. So perhaps we can revise the request to examine, as Carly has written.
Right. For further, stuff, because.
Okay.
I just have, it's like a scary topic of conversation.
Okay, so direction in general to keep and revise to as Carly has written on the screen. Is that
and
okay?
Then separately, I can maybe start that dialogue with another person, and then come with a report and say, this is what our report says compared to your report, and then see which one the community board can support or something like that.
Perfect. Thank you, Debbie. Go ahead, John.
Thank you.
I agree with that. Get a report and see what it would entail to replace the fence, and perhaps just like parks comes to the community board to ask for things. Perhaps if the Parks Board has a board, that the findings of this report is given to the board of the Parks Department, and you explain what you really want, and perhaps they might listen.
Might.
Thank you, John.
It's a dance that we just, we're just starting to get on into.
Great. Well, we will continue dancing by revising this as noted. Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next request is regarding Peter Minowitz Playground. So I recommended revising this to reflect the need for park upgrades and a comfort station, and also to reflect that, acknowledge that the park recently received a soccer pitch, but upgrades are still needed. And this is also emphasized in New York City Parks capital requests that they gave to us during our district budget consultation.
Yeah, and it may be worth noting that the soccer pitch is only a 5-year lifespan, which, yeah.
Makes no sense.
It's just like a Band-Aid. Does anyone, I agree with this recommendation. Does anyone disagree or have any comments?
Okay, the next request is regarding copper pipes and valves on the on-site water system in Harlem River Park. The agency, this has been on the list of requests for a while now, and the response is always the same: further study is needed. The staff recommended removing this request because we're not really sure where it originated, what the need actually is, and Parks hasn't demonstrated a need either in their list. So, we recommended removing.
Is there any institutional knowledge within this committee as to why or how this request evolved?
What is this again?
Go ahead, Francis. You're not, no. Whatever you did, just undo it. Yeah.
Okay.
You can talk now. Nope. You're muted again, Francis. You're still muted.
Hey, you.
I don't know how to do this.
There it is. Don't touch anything.
I'm talking?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
It's for the sprays. The community around has ripped out the pipes and the valves for the water sprays in the park. Until somebody can protect them from not being ripped out again, leave it.
Okay, so Francis, this is for the water features in playgrounds?
Right, in the playground.
I can't say that I remember. This doesn't sound familiar to me at all.
In the playground, there are places in the earth where the spray comes up in the summertime. The community around is not there to protect vandals from pulling out the pipes. So don't replace them until you have security in place.
Okay.
Okay, can you scroll over just so I can read the request again? Go ahead, Diane.
So what Francis just said is the reason why I noticed that the children are no longer over there playing in the water. There used to be a system over there where the water sprouted up from the ground where the children could run through it. And it's no longer there. You just don't see it anymore. The children aren't there anymore either because there's nothing to play. And I don't think there's even the water fountains are working over there either. They used to be, but they're not working anymore. And the other thing to look at is that there is no comfort station. So that also probably is another reason why there's no comfort station there as well. The vandalism that she's talking about is probably from the people, the homeless people. And I can't say homeless, just thieves that just, there's a market for copper. There's a market for copper.
Thank you, Diane.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I guess we either use copper or we use something else so the thieves can't steal it.
Well, I appreciate the added context. When I was reviewing this, I honestly, what I was picturing in my head, or I don't even know what I was picturing. I didn't realize it was intended for the playground water system, but it makes more sense now.
So
Debbie, I would recommend revising it.
Yeah, so it sounds like Debbie and Francis, correct me if I'm wrong, but that it would be best to keep and revise this to clarify that it's regarding the children's display water features, and that the pipes be replaced in something other than copper.
Right.
Okay. Do you have anything else to add, Francis?
That's all.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Does anyone disagree with keeping and revising this request? And Diane, you still have your hand up.
Sorry about that.
No problem. All right. We'll move on. Look at us making headway.
Okay, yeah, we still have a number to go through. Okay, so the next request is regarding the Community Parks Initiative. I revised this. Because it was submitted under our expense request. So it's actually a capital request. So I just moved it over. So I think we should keep it. And also, I think we should keep it. And rather than, I meant to say here, rather than talking about expanding it, I think restoring it is the correct way to phrase it, because the Community Parks Initiative is over. There's no more funding for it.
Go ahead, Connie.
Because that Community Parks Initiative was, throughout the entire 5 boroughs, should we just be a little more specific and identify the sites that would benefit from it, or?
Yeah, I had a similar question, because I recall that this initiative, they specifically focused on parks that had been like over 20 years or something like
Right.
that since they received repairs. And I'm not sure if, I'm personally not sure which parks in our district are in need or haven't received repairs in over 20 years. Yeah, part of me, so at our district budget consultation, Parks said that they would be welcome to us keeping this request, as they would be happy to continue the initiative with funding. I'm not sure if it's worthwhile to, like, I feel like we have enough capital requests to make all of the requests that we need for all capital repairs in our parks. I don't think it hurts to have the Community Parks Initiative request. But yeah, if you have insight as to what parks could be included and do qualify for the CPI program, then I think we could certainly include it.
So I know when we went on the parks tours, there were comments about different parks as to that this park hasn't received, improvements in a long time. And I believe Malik added one of those comments, but I wonder if we can revise it to put the onus on parks to identify those parks that have yet to have any repairs or maintenance and to qualify for this in the first place. I don't think it should be on us to figure that out.
I agree. I mean, put them to work.
Do your job. All right. Does anyone disagree with keeping? I guess we moved this from the other request, so this is technically a revised.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone disagree with revising that request? Great.
Okay. The next 3 requests I added based on the New York City Parks District budget consultation. There's a few more they listed as needs. I just wanted to be conscious of how much space parks takes up compared to others. But I did add 3. I added funding to renovate the roof at Pelham Fritz Recreation Center. It's a need identified by Parks. Also added one to provide funding to install a playground at Omar Edwards Park on East 124th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenues. I feel like that location itself is a hotspot. Sorry, that noise. So I added that. And then the last one is Thomas Jefferson Recreation Center is in need of a lot of upgrades, including restroom upgrades, programming space upgrades, computer room, and whatnot. And I took this all directly from the Excel sheet that Park shared with us.
So unfortunately, we didn't get to visit Detective Omar Edwards Park, but I don't have any insight on that unless anyone else does. Connie, your hand's up. Do you have a question?
Yes, I just wanted to point out that there's $500,000 that Bill Perkins allocated for Pelham Fritz and in the current budget, and Parks has taken that funding and moved it elsewhere. And this happens all of the time, but I think this might be an opportunity to, you know, when you read through the budget when it comes out, and you know, it's just endless pages and pages and pages. And I confirmed with Steve Simon that that money was in the budget, and that Steve Simon said he needed it for somewhere else. And I don't know where he moved that money, but I'm just bringing this up because it's an opportunity for us to fight for it. For if they want to fix the roof, they should bring that $500,000 back.
Agree.
And yes, the roof leaks.
So would everyone agree in adding this request, or I feel like adding it would detract from funding elsewhere if that funding was already available, but I don't.
Well, where did it go?
If that money even stayed in East Harlem.
Right.
Exactly.
How does that even happen?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I agree. I don't know that putting requests on here detracts from other parks. I think you know, it does take a while for projects to be funded. I think it is worth following up with city parks, with parks, to find out where that funding went specifically.
Right.
Hopefully we get a response.
Okay, agree. So we'll add this and note that there was originally funding, and where did that funding go? Cats climbing. Get off.
Anyone have any thoughts about Omar Edwards Park? Do we agree with the recommendation to add it?
Does anyone have any knowledge about this park? I always feel a little bit hesitant to just add whatever Parks tells us to add. So, I mean, I understand. I think this is a good request potentially if it needs one, but I'm not knowledgeable enough.
I'm sorry. Parks asked us to do this?
Yes, these three last requests were funding request suggestions from NYC Parks.
You know, I'm just gonna say, I would say no.
So
I would just say no. I'm sorry. It's, you know, like, oh, let's slip this in, but yet you can't find a bathroom.
So can I speak?
Yeah, go ahead, Diane.
Omar Edwards was a detective that was killed in error, friendly fire or whatever, by his own people. And I think they dedicated the street there to him, and I think they might have dedicated the park. It's across the street from PSA.
Correct.
And I think what they want to do is encourage children to participate over at that park, because there really is no place for the children to play for that block. Not only just to play, but also in honor of him and to tell the story about, I guess, his heroic life, not the part about how he got killed.
Thank you, Diane. Am I correct in understanding that this is like a open sort of, it just has like a patterning? I believe it's shaped in a heart.
It does, and it has a beautiful willow tree.
Yeah.
Okay. But no equipment or anything, no amenities.
No amenities other than a beautiful willow tree that steps you can go and sit in, but it has nothing other than that. And I think they're trying to encourage more activity around it, and also to be able to tell a story about him.
I don't mean to be, I don't mean to be, like, I get it, but I don't like the way that they do this.
Yeah, I agree. But I think that it could potentially be from what I understand in reading about the park before we were intended to visit it, which it was towards the end of our parks tour and we didn't get to it, but
It's a lovely space. It's a lovely space, and they could have been taking care of it.
Yep. Go ahead, Connie.
This park has been closed for
forever.
Sheena took it upon herself to lock the gate and not let anybody in, as she tried to do with Harlem Art Park. And nobody bothered to complain about this. Park's answer to every park where they think homeless people might go is to turn it into a playground, because then they can, put up rules that you have to have a child to be inside. I personally don't know that that particular space needs to be a playground. I think we probably as a committee need to assess what the playground needs are. But parks, if it was left to them, they would turn every small park into a playground, which means you no longer have green space, you have different surfaces. And the green spaces are incredibly important to, East Harlem, because we don't have enough green. We don't have enough trees. We don't have enough things that are helping us to fight off climate change. You put in another playground. Do we need another playground is the question I'm asking. I'm going to say at this site, no.
No, I agree. I agree that this, this is something that they're slipping in, and I'm sorry I didn't raise my hand.
Okay.
I'll
let you go this one time.
See, I recognized it. I'm sorry. I think that this is, I don't agree with this recommendation. I don't like the way that it comes at us. And I think that we will miss an opportunity to really engage in a process that then can address other specific issues that have been identified by this committee for the commitment to green spaces and spaces in general. Because like I got a sign in my park that says you can only come in with an adult. No adult can come in without a child. Why? So I think that this is kind of like this subversive way that they're doing this, and I'm pushing back on this, and I don't really support this.
Thank you, Debbie.
Can I speak also?
Go ahead, Diane.
Well, I hear what everybody's saying about the park, and I can understand why Sheena closed that park, locked that park. That is an area where there is a great deal of homelessness around in that block. That's where the M35 bus stops also before it goes to Trowbridge Bridge. So perhaps they were having some people loitering in the park and activities, questionable activities. The only park that any of those kids and residents can go to is Wagner. And they have to cross several streets to get to Wagner. I don't have a problem with it. I honestly, if parks felt they needed to do that and they want to try to make it secure in the current environment by adding a children's park and putting up hours for it, I'm fine with it. Because I know what's around in that area.
Okay. I just, I'm not sure where I fall in whether it should be a playground or a park or whatever, but I think just a general comment, Carly, if we could add that any request possible that pavement impervious pavement be replaced wherever we're asking for parks or playground improvements, impervious pavement be replaced with green space and or pervious pavements. Okay, so it sounds like we're kind of at a standstill with this agreement, this request. Obviously, I think this park needs attention, whether that's a playground or not. I think that we could add it without noting playground, and that the park in general just needs amenities and improvement. Would that be acceptable to everyone? Go ahead, Connie.
I would say that the park needs benches and seating. You know, parks like this it's a lovely little park, and there's absolutely nowhere to sit. So there's no reason. You go in, what do? You just stand there and enjoy the beautiful tree. It is a gorgeous tree, by the way.
It is.
But, you know, parks would rather put in play equipment, whether it's needed or not. That's really their solution for everything right now. And yeah, we might need play equipment in there, but it should also include benches and, you know, things for adults. Many children are in playgrounds, and they're with seniors, and they're with grown-ups.
Yeah, I think my major holdup is that adults can't enter without children, which as
Yeah.
a childless adult, I feel like that's a little unfair.
Yeah.
So whatever, you know, I think I would be of the opinion that we should say it needs improvements and amenities such as benches and seating.
Yeah.
But I don't think we should run straight to playground. Does anyone have any further comments on this? Go ahead, Diane.
I agree with you, rather than specifying at this point, but it definitely must need some amenities and needs further discussion with the community at large about it in the board.
Could you add that note, Carly, about community involvement in deciding what it is? Thank you. Debbie?
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing, that we don't turn this over, that maybe we're going to, you know, ask them to, we're gonna explore better usage, you know, so that then we can reflect the needs of the community rather than just, you know, because right now every space is like a battle. That's what it feels like. And they're just kind of dumping whatever equipment they have. And I know I come off a little bit hard on this, but I think that the practice of this is something that is more concentrated in East Harlem compared to other parts of the city, like everything else. And that's the angle that we can play. It's like, you know, why are we always getting this? You know, you ask us to do this, but then you can't do these other things. So there's a disparity in treatment and process that applies to East Harlem green infrastructure development. And that's what we need to tell Chris and the new commissioner.
Yep. Yeah, everything all the time, everywhere should be climate resistant, wherever possible, as much green space and absorptive materials as possible.
Right. Because everybody loves the tree and loves the great, you know, the beautiful heart, and they get this warm and fuzzy feeling, and then you can't do anything else.
Yeah. Okay, great. So it sounds like we're gonna add and revise this to general beautification and amenity provision at this park, not necessarily a playground as it could,
No,
you know, has its own
no, not a
restrictions.
playground at this time.
Yeah, okay. And that the community surrounding this park be involved in whatever those improvements are. Excellent, great work, committee. And the last one's Thomas Jefferson Recreation Center. All sorts of things.
And that'll eat up all the money. All right, I still have my hand up.
All right. Don't make me yell at you like
I know. I'm at the line. I know.
All right. Does anyone have any? I can't tell whose hands were raised previously or are now being raised. So go ahead.
I did
Connie.
just put mine back up.
Okay, sorry.
So I take mine off every time. I have an issue with what's currently happening in all of the recreation centers in East End Central Harlem. The programming is no longer geared towards the community with things that they used to go to the rec centers for. The rec centers are sort of behaving like for-profit businesses, and the community is not welcome in them. You know, the Pelham Fritz is the cooling center on extreme hot weather. And if you ask the seniors in the park and say, you know, you can go in the rec center, they'll say, I'm not going in there, they're mean. Literally, that's what they say. So I am hesitant to invest in rec centers until they are actually providing services for the community. They've removed all the services they used to give to community residents, like after school programs and art programs. Pelham Fritz is no longer doing after school programs. They're not allowing the children in. They want to focus on older people. But the community would like to use the center for, for children. And the other thing is you go in these rec centers and there's nobody in there.
I've seen that.
Yeah, there's nobody in the rec centers. And I've been to them on the east side and the west side. And these are public buildings. They all have bathrooms, but the community is not allowed to use those bathrooms. If anyone goes to any one of those rec centers and asks to use the bathroom, if I go, I'm told, no, you cannot use the bathroom. You have to be a member.
Right.
So these buildings are not being used by the community. So I'm going to say we should not be investing in the rec centers until they're serving the community.
Yeah, and I do want to bring up that that rec centers do have free membership and through December or whatever it is. But yeah, it's a little hard for me to stomach that people would have to pay to use a community amenity like that. But I'm not a big rec center user. Does anyone else have any comments on this request? Anyone we haven't heard from in a while, like Natasha, Malik, Alonzo, Russell? Do y'all have any comments about anything that we've discussed so far, and or this request?
Not really.
No comment.
Do any of you use rec centers at all?
No.
I did when I was younger a little bit, but not as much as I do now. Like, I don't use them really anymore.
Do you have a reason why? Just asking.
I don't know why. I just like went once, I guess. I don't remember, but I think I had like a little bit of like a bad experience there with a couple of other kids. So I just didn't go anymore.
Okay.
It was
Thank
a
you.
long time ago.
Yeah, thanks for your insight. And I see, sorry, Jewel, I'm so sorry. I've had my my screen pulled over and I haven't been able to see the attendees' hands. Please go ahead.
So with regard to this specific rec center, I actually just went there yesterday since there is no cost, and submitted my application. So before we, generalize about rec centers, I went in, very pleasant conversation. I didn't go all the way in. I submitted my application the next day. Well, actually that at the same time, I'm able to use the facilities. I was explained what was available. I was provided with a calendar. There was some youth programming. So before we and I must say that was my first time going in there. So that's just but I'm just saying I had a pleasant experience. And so before we generalize, I'm speaking specifically about what we're talking about, the Thomas Jefferson, which is near me. So I just want to add my 2 cents about that particular one. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Joel. Natasha?
Oh, no, I just want to say I wasn't generalizing rec centers. It's just an experience I had at the Thomas Jefferson one a long time ago, but I'm glad to hear that it has gotten a lot better. So thank you for that insight.
Thank you, Natasha. Russell, you had your hand up for a second.
No, change my mind.
No, say it. All right, well.
Okay, so this is what I'll say. I'm gonna call you right back in. What I would say is this, is that when it comes to use of the recreation centers, we have to think about how our young people have evolved in the type of activities they engage in. A number of activities that would require supervision, number of activities that would require, different types of materials and things along that line. So it's a complex situation as I see. I use recreation centers. I just recently join Hansborough, which is in Community Board 10, closer to my home. But it's like we are still coming out of this pandemic. We don't know what it really looks like. We don't know what it really looks like going down the line. When it comes to Jefferson Park, as you look at, we don't know how it's being used. We still have things that are in the air. So it's a matter, in the park that we were talking about before I was in agreement, we should understand that park, what does the community really need? What populations are being targeted? And for all our recreation centers, what audiences are being targeted? What hours of the day is it being made available that way? So these are some of the concerns that we all have to look at. It's just not a matter of young people are, again, like in the mid 70s during the fiscal crisis, are moved away from controlled leisure time activities, supervised controlled leisure time activities. So we got to see what the environment, what our society is demanding now, and what age groups are we talking about? Are these kids in that we may be looking at, are they in after school programs at school level? All right, so that's some of my concerns, or concerns we should begin to look at.
Thank you, Russell. Does anyone know at what age it starts that you have to pay, outside of this free membership time period? No. Okay. Natasha?
Well, I just wanted to say that, yeah, Russell has a point about the fact that a lot of kids my age, we don't, like, I know obviously that the rec center, but I know a lot of kids my age, like I mentioned the rec center to someone like a year ago and they said, oh, that's the thing, like it's open. A lot of them think it's just for like the older people, and there needs to be like a lot more like posters up saying that, like events for kids and stuff.
Thank you for that insight, both of you. I think that's great. I personally think that we could add and revise it. I think that we should note that what Russell and Natasha are saying, which you have, Carly, thank you, and that potentially if we could look into what age membership fees start kicking in, I would argue that anyone under the age of like 24 or 18 or whatever, there should not be a cost associated with attending a rec center.
I think it's
Diane?
free up to 18.
Free up to 18.
Not that we need to belabor this, I want to belabor this, but I would like to have a separate discussion as to how are these people chosen to run these rec centers? How is the community involved? I'd like to know more about that before I make any more decisions, and for myself. Because I hear us talking, I hear about young people, I hear about older people. So it would be nice to know how Parks chooses the operator for these rec centers. And a separate discussion, Madam Chair.
Yes, I'll note that. Thank you. Okay, so it sounds like we'll add and revise unless there are any further comments, and then we will look into, I wonder if we can just have New York City Parks come present on rec centers in general, given that membership is free at this time.
Right.
Okay, great. All right, Carly, on to whatever's next. The next.
Okay, so we're on expense now, and I recommend removing some, I recommend consolidating some, and these are the requests that we really need to be mindful of taking up space, where there's only 25 requests. So we can submit more than 25, but only the first 25 will be considered priority. The rest won't be considered priority. So I just wanted to say that, keep it in mind, the 25 across the whole board, not just parks, and expense requests encompass programs, services, hiring. So I just wanted to make that note before I started on these. So the first request is calling for a restoration of full funding for the seasonal budget funding has since been restored. I recommend revising this request to encompass all of the park's maintenance staff, including the gardening staff, green thumb staff, just pretty much most of the staff. This language is pulled from the park's expense requests list. So I didn't just pull it out of the blue. They categorize all of these employees as employees under M&O, which I believe stands for.
Dancing in the street. Debbie.
Oh, yes, we are.
Did you mute yourself?
Sorry. Oh, my God.
Sorry. You're still unmuted. Thank you. We are dancing in the street when we're done with this meeting.
First, I thought it was Francis singing. So, well, Francis, you have a good voice. Okay. Yeah, so I recommend revising this to make it all encompassing, because we do have a number of requests that call for like additional staffing, and I just thought it would save some space.
I agree with that. Does anyone disagree or have any comments about this request? All right, thank you.
Okay. The next request is for more trash cans on our streets. The number one concern overwhelmingly for core infrastructure resiliency was street cleanliness and garbage. I recommend keeping this request and most of the sanitation requests, if not all of them.
I agree. Does anyone disagree with that? Please raise your hand.
The next request is frequent litter basket collection. I recommend revising this request, keeping it, and maybe focusing. So we learned that funding is given for the frequency of litter basket collection. Funding for these services are given according to population size. So I recommend revising it and calling for, well, I didn't add it here, but just kind of emphasizing the need for additional services on top of that which are, already allocated for the district.
Agree. Does anyone have a disagreement or comment for this request? Okay.
All right, so this is the green thumb request that I recommended removal as in consolidation under the first request, maintenance and operation staff.
Agree. Does anyone disagree or have any comments on this request? Great.
This is the gardeners. This is another one that I consolidated under the first request. I'm also happy to revise the first request. If anybody does have any recommendations later on, let me know. But for me, it was just like consolidating all of the staffing, the maintenance staffing.
Any comments on this? I personally agree.
Right. The next one is the one that was the community parks initiative that I moved above to capital. So I recommend removing it.
Yes, that makes sense. We should not ask for it twice. Does anyone disagree? Okay.
Okay. So in the expense request, forestry staff was included under maintenance. However, there was like an additional category for additional staff for pruning and removal of tree stumps. So I recommended keeping it and revising it. and I just specified a little bit more, took some language from parks. I'm open whether we keep this separate or, consolidate it to the first request. I'm happy to do either.
I personally disagree with consolidating this request. I think street trees are important and heat in our neighborhood, and are we put in new street trees and then don't maintain them, and then they die, and then we have to put in new street trees. So this demands higher importance. Go ahead, Connie.
Could we add to this and to be a little more specific? And the reason why all the trees are dying is they're not being watered. And the Parks Department has a watering system that's mobile. Find the language to add the regular watering truck to come around and, the million trees thing was a brilliant idea, but more than half of them have died because of no one's watering them.
Do you happen to know if it's called the watering truck, or I could look it up afterwards?
I don't know what it's called, but there's this truck that, when we had Panama working, he would always request the watering truck for the gardens, and that's why his gardens stayed alive. And I know that watering truck, I've seen it doing the Green Streets locations every once in a while, those on the medians in the middle of the block where Parks has taken over what used to be DOT sites. It's a truck, and it's got a big giant tank on it, and it goes around and it waters things.
Okay, I put it in red, so I know to look at it later. And,
Yeah.
and we'll find out what the more formal name is.
And from our district budget request meeting with Parks, we did talk about street trees and the cost of maintaining versus putting in new street trees. And from what I took away from that conversation, that they place the onus of maintaining the street trees on either business owners or surrounding people and the community members to maintain those trees, which is just like not how it should be done. So I agree. If there's a street watering amenity for other neighborhoods that East Harlem doesn't have, we should definitely have it. Thank you, Connie.
You're welcome.
Okay, this next request is about, we added it last year. It was a sanitation service, the vacant lot cleaning unit. I recommend keeping it. They weren't able to, guarantee anything in last year's requests.
Considering we have about 1 million vacant lots, I think that we should keep this. Does anyone disagree or have any comments?
The next request is, calling for more trees to be planted. And yeah, this was the need that was identified in our public input survey, not just the need for more trees to mitigate climate change and urban heat, but also the need to maintain them, which is why I felt that we should have them as separate requests.
Agree. Does anyone disagree or have any comments on this request?
Okay, this last request is one I added when I was going through the guide for budget requests. It's just increasing enforcement of canine waste laws. We received so many complaints about this. We received them on a regular basis, outside of the budget process, and received them on a regular basis in the public input, survey process. So I recommended increasing enforcement of canine waste laws.
And could not agree with this request more. I don't think that we necessarily need to be policing this, but the amount of feces on the sidewalks is unbelievable all throughout the district. So I agree with adding this. Does anyone disagree or have any comments about this request? Go ahead, Diane.
Not to be funny, but I wish we could add human feces to this as well.
Yep.
Because that's an issue, particularly around in areas where we have a lot of people who are no public bathrooms and just have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. Do you have any suggestions for revising and or adding a new request for that?
I have, other than, you know, I really don't. I just don't, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But it is a problem. That is a problem, and as well as public urination is a problem.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I'm not sure. Oh, go ahead, Diane. I'm sorry to cut you off.
I don't know how you would phrase that. So, but it's clearly waste matter on our sidewalks is a problem. I don't know if you just want to say canine only, but yeah, I just think it's something to think about going forward. Maybe not for tonight, but another time.
Yeah, the thing about these laws, like enforcement of canine waste laws, there's like an actual specific law like that penalizes dog owners who fail to pick it up, and it's just never enforced.
Right.
I am hesitant to combine the two because they're two separate issues that need to be addressed in different ways. And Connie has her hand raised.
Go ahead, Connie.
I was just going to suggest that we, I mean, it's next to impossible to enforce the canine laws. They used to be enforced when they were first instated back in like the 1980s, I think. You know, people literally walked up to you and gave you a ticket if you didn't pick up after your dog. What if we suggest sidewalk cleaning? Because really what we're seeing on the sidewalks is more human than it is canine. And if the city is not willing to provide bathrooms for people, then they should be willing to clean it up. I think we need our sidewalks cleaned.
Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen. So
Aren't you already sharing your screen?
I'm gonna share my screen again for a different screen, which is the list that we have to choose from. I was also looking at this and thinking the same thing, Connie. I was hesitant though to request the increased enforcement of dirty sidewalks because we hear a lot of complaints from business owners who are like, well, the onus of the pay, like we're not the one, like it's an added burden to business owners and homeowners who are, you know, frankly not making the mess on the street, but paying a lot of fines as a result of the street conditions. And I mean, so yeah, I would be happy to have a discussion about it, but that was the reason why I did not include the increased enforcement. And then I was also, to your point, I guess we could do an other cleaning request.
I was just going to suggest that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a great idea, Carly. I think if we could add not only this dog feces request and then add a separate request under other cleaning requests for general sidewalk cleaning. And I agree with you that not putting the enforcement on the business owners is probably the best way to go. But in regards to the previous one about canine waste, I think something that could help, and I really don't see a lot of it, is those provided bags that you can take and pick up the poop and put it in the basket. I personally don't see a lot of those. I don't know if that is something that we could add. Connie, did you have any other comments?
I just wanted to say that, you know, I grew up where all the store owners and the homeowners kept their sidewalks clean. It wasn't considered a burden. It was considered their responsibility. And I think, I don't want them to be fined. I don't think they can afford it, but I think that I don't understand why we no longer clean our sidewalks in front of our homes and why our businesses no longer clean the sidewalks in front of their stores.
I hear you. And I think that these are conversations we've had ongoing with DSNY, that there's this like chicken and egg situation, was like, you know, did the trash cans get taken away and the sanitation services get decreased because the, you know, community didn't appreciate them, or is the real problem, you know, the fact that the collection and sanitation services are just not enough, and is it exacerbating an already existing problem? Yeah, I think it is both. And I think that, like, I mean, I know business owners, one of the people who came into one of our full boards, I go to Super Nice on 117th and Lex all the time, and there's a sign that says, you know, if don't pee here because you'll be fined, you're on camera. And recently they took down the sign and then replaced it with a new sign that's saying exactly the same thing. So it's a consistent problem, but I can sense his particular frustration with, you know, the streets. And, you know, I think businesses are doing enough to survive, and I wouldn't want any fines to be imposed on business owners for not, you know, being able to keep up with the amount of trash that is accumulating in front of their businesses. Personally, I think it's a sanitation problem mainly. It should be on the city to help us overcome this problem. Does anyone else, everyone agree that we could add this other cleaning request item? Or any comments? Go ahead, Diane.
The only comment I would have is that you are specifically saying streets like East 125th Street, 160 East. As you know, Uptown Grand Central handles the supplemental cleaning, and we've got members of the clean team that has joined us. Obviously, everyone understands the challenges of East 125th Street. So, but the other streets like 116th, Lexington, and 3rd Avenue, they don't have any type of quasi organization that could provide supplemental cleaning for the business owners. So that's the only thing I would say about this. Remove 125th Street for now. And that's it. Maybe Madison, you know, all our major corridors. Really,
I know. Yeah, that's like kind of the issue, is that I feel like the problem is ubiquitous. And I know a man on Madison between 110th and 111th who's out there every day picking up the trash, and he's not part of any organization, but you know, right. I feel like a lot of regular people in the community are picking up the bulk of the work, and that happens on avenues and streets, regardless of whether they're major intersections. I'm not sure that it would be, I feel like it should be a blanket statement, although then it makes it less effective. What do you think, Diane?
Well, and you're right, because that's basically how Uptown Grand Central started out, as NEMA, grassroots. That's the only way that it happened. So 116th Street, clearly, Lexington Avenue, Madison, but clearly the major business corridors. We need cleaning. Yes, I mean, even on the side streets.
Yeah, I feel, Carly, I wonder if we can just say to all sidewalks with a well, I think you can leave what you wrote, just to say provide sidewalk cleaning services district wide with a focus on. But not limited to. Yeah, I think that's great. Does anyone have any further comments on this or disagree with this in any way? Okay, did we do it? Did we make it to the end?
Did it. I know that it's these meetings are always really long, especially when we're talking about the budget, but I really appreciate all of your engagement on it. I know it's not the most exciting topic for some, and I feel like I say this all the time, but it's so important. So thank you all.
Yes, thank you, everyone. And for those of you who, thank you, Alonzo, for raising your hand. I was just going to say, for those of you who have less to say, I encourage you to say more. Go ahead, Alonzo.
Yeah, sorry for not saying more. This is actually my first committee meeting, so
don't worry about it.
Thank you for having me. After doing a little bit of research online, It looks like the official term you're looking for is indeed water truck.
Thank you.
Can you put that in the chat? What's it called?
It's just a Green Streets water truck.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. One last thing I wanted to say very quickly, because I know it's at the end. Jessica, you mentioned, the man who stands outside on 110th and Madison Avenue cleaning, picking up garbage. And I think that like one thing that the community board could consider doing in the future is kind of like lifting up those people on the ground who are doing that work, whether it's like, I don't know, like an honorary, like a little certificate that we give them. Like it's literally no cost to the community board to print out a certificate and acknowledge the work that they do for the community. Just something small, but I think that we should keep, even though the onus should certainly not be on our residents, we should definitely recognize those who are making positive impacts on our sidewalks and our streets and, just every day in the community. Just wanted to raise that.
Let's add that to new business for next month. And I have I have a draft in my email inbox to Nilsa and Angel about that exact like sort of a community spotlight for residents who are doing great, whether that's cleaning up the neighborhood or whatever that may be. So I think that's a great idea, Carly. Alonzo, you still have your hand up. I'm not sure if you have a question. Okay, Michelle, go ahead.
I would like to support what was just said. I really think that would really boost community spirit to acknowledge individuals and have that sort of a spotlight on the good that you can do, what one person can do, and then it could just blossom into something else. I really appreciate that, and I thank you for that suggestion.
Great. We'll add that to new business for our next meeting. And then thank you, Michelle. Does anyone have any old business? And then for new business, we spoke at executive about this and mentioned that we would be having this conversation so that people could attend. But essentially, Angel has, I'll try to do my best to summarize this, but no promises. A suggestion as with the Metro North segments being renovated over 2023 to however long that's going to take, everything underneath it is going to be needing to be moved temporarily. I guess this is primarily speaking about the sort of parking areas where M10 sanitation garage fleet and equipment is being stored between 130th and 132nd streets, as well as the operation or the employee parking between 128th and 130th streets. So while this is way off in the future, Angel is suggesting, and the executive committee agrees, for although there's no direction as to what's going to happen next, but just to bring this to our attention, Angel's suggestion was to plan to accommodate the needs of those things being relocated instead of going onto our streets haphazardly without direction, to make an agreement with a lot, which is on a vacant lot on 2nd Avenue between 126th streets and 127th streets, be used to park buses. Oh, so that lot would be used to house the equipment and vehicles during the reconstruction project. So he floated that idea to EDC, DSNY, and they're open to entertaining this idea. So I feel like that is something that could fall under our committee. It's just something to be thinking about, whether we would like to make a resolution at some point, but not tonight. Go ahead, Diane.
I'm not gonna, because it is late, because I went on that walkthrough with them yesterday about the viaduct. I'm not quite, I understand what you just mentioned, moving the cars from 119th Street to 124th and 120. I think you guys need to have more discussion about that. But I will encourage everyone to try to participate when they have these walkthroughs, because they're looking for community input.
Great. Could you let us know when the next one is happening?
Carly would have to address that one. Okay.
We'll look into it.
I'll let you know.
Carly, do you have any questions or any comments about? I feel like what I said was unclear because I'm trying to read it from an email that's piecemeal, but essentially there's the viaduct and then there's parking and things that are happening underneath. And while the viaduct is being removed in places to be repaired, the things that are there need to be relocated, and without a plan, they'll just go wherever they are in the neighborhood and impact parking and pollution and whatever. So Angel's suggesting that we proactively make an agreement with a vacant lot to store those there during these construction. So we'll look into this more as we go further with direction from the executive committee, but I have a feeling that any motion or resolution on this will be involving our committee. So just to be thinking about it. Any other new business? Go ahead, Diane.
I would also add, take into consideration, there's going to be dust, there's going to be noise, there's going to be all these things as part of environment.
Yep. Okay,
so yes, you need to have a much more in-depth discussion about it.
Yes. Any other new business? All right. Let me go to my script. Okay. I've abandoned the script. I'm sorry. If there, okay, let's do a roll call for attendance. Sorry.
No problem. Okay, Collier.
Here.
Elliott.
Here.
Giordano.
I'm here.
Hume. Johnson.
I'm here.
Huh?
Here.
All right, Francis is here. Alonso.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
McCullough. Oh, I know he was here before. Malik, you still here? No.
I don't think so.
Okay. Pena. Quinones.
Here.
Rodriguez.
Present.
Schuler.
Here.
Wiltshire Clement.
Present.
Right. Okay. Thank
Sorry,
you all.
before we adjourn, I just want to make sure I have my ducks in a row for executive, because as we talked about the other item that we discussed about the solar panels today, general consensus as to whether or not it'll be supported. I just wanted to make sure, my intention is to go to executive, and should youth and education and EcoDev agree to support the Drive Shack proposal with the recommendations, for local hiring and youth engagement, I'm prepared to go ahead with their recommendations for a letter of support for that. If no one objects, does anyone have an objection or a comment on that? Raise your hand. Michelle, go ahead.
You say the Drive Shack as in the Gulf?
Yes, because we didn't take a vote, and they're meeting with EcoDev and Youth and Education, and those two committees are going to form opinions and any resolution letter of support caveats, and we're going to vote on that executive.
Honestly, I feel that space could really be used for
anything else. Yeah, I agree. Okay.
Just no. Anything else it could be used for besides. So.
Okay, Diane.
I guess for clarity, I guess when the execs meet, it's that not only we're supporting it with the condition of whatever comes out of the ECHO and youth and education. Am I reading that right, or is it we're just gonna give them a blanket support?
No, yeah, we're gonna basically take all of the comments that we've had from our meeting, EcoDev and Youth and Education, with any recommendations for additions to the letter of support or things like that, and then vote at executive.
Okay, thank you.
Debbie?
I'm good.
All right.
I'm just gonna let it go.
Okay. All right. Have a good night, everyone. This meeting is adjourned at 9:34. Thanks for all of your work. Appreciate you all.
Good night.
Night all.
Good night.